going to make sure you grab these safety glasses, and you'll notice they're numbered, that belong to your station. So when it's your turn, if you're in station 1, you're going to come up, grab station 1 safety glasses, put them on. So I've got my safety glasses. I go ahead, I put them on, I grab my material, and I'm going to go to the back. When you get ready to stain, your instructor's going to have some tables laid out, and you'll be able to see there's some paper on top, and there'll be some cans of stain most likely set out along with some rags. So you're going to have some gloves. These are not latex, so you don't have to worry if you have an allergy. But you're going to put your gloves on because you're going to be staining, and once again, by the definition of the word, stain will stain your clothes. So you want to make sure you have sleeves pulled up, all that type of stuff, so you don't have anything getting in the stain. You're then going to take your pieces and you're going to come over to the table, and your instructor will point out what you have, but you're going to have a couple of choices. Most likely there'll be a darker stain and a lighter stain. I'm going to go ahead and stain mine with the darker stain. So I would go ahead, I would get a rag, and you're going to see your lid should be loose. Your instructor should have stirred the stain for you already. Now remember, before you go to stain, you should have your first and last name, preferably in marker or pen, written on the bottom. The other thing you're going to want to make sure you do is take the pen and write your initials right down here next to the hole. So whatever your initials, first and last, would be, you would write that right down here by the hole. You're going to see when you go to dip your rag in the stain that you want to try to keep the stain in the container. You'll notice the table's pretty clean and it should stay that way. But you're going to have what is called your end grain. You've heard your instructor talk about. Then you have the face grain, the side grain. Your end grain is like a bunch of little straws, and it's going to soak up the majority of the stain. So I start with the end, and that means you follow the grain. When you get to the end, that's the end grain. But you dip in the stain. Make sure you let it drip in before it drips on the table. Then you come over to your end, and you wipe it on in the direction of the grain. And you'll notice it absorbs, and you'll see it start running down the actual face, because like I said, there's actually little straws, and you can see it absorbs. It takes much more stain to do the ends than it does to do the surface. So I go ahead, I stain my end grain, then I go ahead and I work around staining my face, and I can get just a little bit more stain. After I stain my face, I make sure I get the edges and the back face. But you'll notice it doesn't take a lot, and when you put stain on correctly, it should look dry, not wet. If it looks wet like you've been eating pancakes, it's going to be sticky like you've been eating pancakes, and it will take a long time to dry. You want it to look like a dry coat. So I go ahead, turn my piece all the way around, making sure I have it all completely coated. You can still see my initials written down here by the hole, but I make sure I have a nice even coat, and I set that off to the side. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my base. Once again, I follow the grain. That's the end grain. So I start with the end grain. I get a small amount in my rag. I make sure I drip it off in the can. Then I go ahead and I do the end grain first, because once again, that's going to absorb more. Now you also have the end grain of your springboard holder. And then I have the end grain on the other side of the springboard holder and the base. Once again, if I dip that in there, I make sure it drops off in the can. Then I come and I do my end grain. You want to use as little amount of stain as possible. Once again, making sure it looks like it's dry. Then I would come back and I would go ahead and I would start staining all the way around my basketball game, starting with the face, surface, and the sides. But I'm going to go ahead, stain all the way around. Now if you find sometimes it doesn't look like it's staining right down here in the corner, that's probably just because you had a little excess glue that didn't get wiped up, and it's okay. But you're going to go ahead and you're going to do the top face all the way around the sides. Once again, a light coat so that it looks dry. Then once again, where your name is on the bottom, you're going to go ahead and stain this, even though we don't see it. And you're just going to take your stain, wipe it on. Your name should still be visible through the stain. Once again, when I'm done, I turn around to make sure I don't see any spots that dried and that I missed. If I would, I just simply take my rag, but you'll notice it's not shiny. It looks smooth and dry. I take that rag, just kind of wipe it up. If I would get any on the table, I just take my rag, I wipe it up. If no one else is over to stain, you can go ahead and take this lid, just lightly put it on. Your instructor will put it on the rest of the way. Your rag just stays over here. Now you'll notice, initials are right down here. My first and last name is here. Your instructor is going to show you where they want you to put them. But you're going to go ahead, put them where your instructor wants them. Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and get rid of your gloves. When it comes to your gloves, you simply take your thumb and index finger, pinch the corner, roll it inside out, take it and ball it up. So the dirty part of the glove is right here. I then do the same thing down at the bottom over here, and I've contained my glove. Your rag is going to stay on the table because there might be group staining later on in the day. Your instructor will get rid of those. Once again, you're going to take your gloves. You'll find the nearest trash can, and you will throw them away in the trash can.